graduated college and is currently working on a master's program. He lives in Southington, Connecticut with his wife and family and is a spiritual seeker who believes in all things and loves non-dualistic ideals. You can find him on social media at Pinky's Out Beer Chats, where he basks in the lush backyard of his mind and ruminates on bits of his gray matter that have found their way onto paper and into books. Matt is the author of 5 full-length collections of poetry, Long Odds at Best, Chronicles from the Periphery, Of Drink and Greatness, Depending Upon the Muse, and Even the Flowers Mock Me. Tonight, I will be reading from his book, Chronicles from the Periphery. The first poem is kind of a personal actually shows the personal superpower of poetry. So it's called Masterpiece. Time to toss out the tender and the 2-bit and go to war with the rest. It's the words, it's the fire, it's the poems. Yeah, the poems allow me to face the impossible and fight where others choose to quit. Right up to the grave's edge in an instinctive way. Luckily, I was never taught. Writing from a position of the self-created is power itself, raw power, true power, like madness with a comical lining, laughing at death, laughing at life, laughing at all things in between. Misunderstood, the champions continue to go unnoticed. And the next one is called Contemplate. What I get out of this poem is that there are 3 kinds of people: those who get it, those who don't get it, and those who keep trying to get it. Contemplate is, most people miss the point of the 1,000-year-old root. Yeah, I'll start this again. Contemplate. Most people miss the point of the 1,000-year-old root system. The tree gets it. The one-eared painter gets it. The child speaking her first word gets it. The monk in the cave, sworn to silence, gets it. Through lingering scents of lavender and bacon, I contemplate, but I haven't quite gotten it yet. And the next one is called Weighed Down. Now, what I get out of this one is, if you're superstitious or ever have been, this one will hit home with you. My mind, dismissive and impotent with drink, begins feeling weighed down by a carved sense of futility, while the pathetic and inadequate words are masquerading as profound, blunt pencil scrawls. But we know better, don't we? Drinking less than I used to, but more than I should, I never know if the car is going to start. I should have never switched from white-lined paper to yellow-lined paper. What a dangerous signal that was. So that's that one. Carol, or Ruth, I can't seem to see myself on the screen anymore. All I am looking at is Manolis.
No, you're there. You're there on my screen.
Okay, yeah, I can't see myself on mine. I just wanted to make sure things were working well.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one is a poem. What I get out of this poem reflects feelings a poet gets when he revisits some poems he hasn't read or even thought about in years. It's called Old Things. Scribbling lines of distinction on stolen stationery, turning pages. I'm going to start again. I keep hearing background noise. I'm sorry, it's just interrupting me. This poem reflects a feeling of the poet gets when he revisits some poem he hasn't read or even thought of in years. Old Things, scribbling lines of distinction on stolen stationery, turning pages into poems immortal. I couldn't possibly dial it back. Not at this pawn shop, not at this funeral parlor, not while drinking homemade sangria. It seems even the fireflies are wishing me good fortune these days, and I can smell the ease of the flowers while walking on thunder so blue, so roaring, bleeding the sky. It's a twisted, luminous walk, never ending and nailed to the paper. The old thing suddenly made new, the old thing reborn and eternal. And the next poem is called Time. Now, time attempts to actualize in a surreal way the punctuation of time. Minds sit waiting in the belly of the overblown, often asking where the time has gone. Once young, undisturbed, and full of unexplained whimsy, the sage has now turned to stone, yet still throws some light into the dark. We must bore through the senses and the illusions in revelatory anticipation toward the invisible realms, for a man may be born on one day and die on another. But what happens between the hyphen is in fact where the time has gone. And the next one here,
Your sound's off, Candice. Your sound's off. There you go.
Okay, yeah, it went off on its own, and then a block came up, said, would you like to unmute? I couldn't unmute it till that block came up. How weird. See, somebody from another realm was listening to this and wants me to know. Okay, so this next one is I think it's a subconscious flight of fancy, nothing more, nothing less. And it's called Dwindling Moonlight. The moonlight is dwindling as emperors weep, and the birds are fast asleep. The years are mellowing my madness, but that's all right. There are still plenty of pints left to be had, and there will always be final storms raging, ever oblique, for the dead who still can't speak. And the next one I find is an abstract view of invisible frustration. Invisible frustration. Dry sticks and baskets. The words seek a wider territory than I can provide. Even my shadows are made thin-skinned and temperamental. I'm hanging onto this branch like Hemingway held onto the shotgun until the thing was done. Night and day, day and night, the boat is leaking. Dry sticks and baskets. And this next one, I kind of really quite like this one. I find it to be the tribulations of an obsessed perfectionist, and it's called Additions and Subtractions. He was a writer too, and his was a slow suicide, that of a man emotionally bankrupt. He realized that the things we can't change in time may change us, but he was also bankrupt of patience. Time sure does take its toll. Throughout his life, he had seen people be unbelievably cruel to each other, and for some reason it hurt him deeply to see this. Probably hurt him more than it hurt the average person. He had also seen the incredible beauty and kindness with which people treat each other on occasion as well. In hindsight, that's probably what kept him around for as long as he ended up staying. He saw the world as a place where selling sin was easy, selling God was easy, but selling the truth was damn near impossible. He couldn't stand that this truth gnawed at him, but he couldn't deny the fact that it did either. He would carry his manuscripts everywhere he went, always making changes, additions, fractions, corrections. I guess in the end he figured he could never get it quite right to where he wanted it to be, never quite right. The note found by his body read, "I now know how the story ends." And his next one, I find it's like a spiritual cycle within the circle of birth and death and life that happens inside and outside the circle. And it's called Merely Wanes. Garble the voices just to throw nails, like passing through a thing again and again and again. Creation being the true factor. Death doesn't seem too bad after all. Finally, I'll be let out of this straight jacket. Going mad is fine as long as it's a clean version. It's the sloppy tides I can't stand to bear. Maybe it's the novelty bird feeders. Maybe it's the velvet-lined dreams. Maybe it's circling answer D on all the multiple choice questions on the exam. The end is the beginning is the end. The middle merely wanes. And this one, it's kind of funny at the end. It's called Flush. Glorious is the view from the top turnbuckle. To hell with remorse, guilt, apologies. Time to start running toward the men holding the shovels. I'll only ask one last favor. Cover me good, boys. Don't miss an inch and let the worms get to work. Stripping the meat down to the bones so I can be beautiful once more. The curtain is drawn on the self-pity bit. Seems silly now to have spent so much time juicing carrots and kale and ginger. The bad years still shone through a face gut-wrenched and slathered, red-eyed and wet-brained. A man whose poems worked well as toilet paper, a privilege to wipe the asses of accidental readers. Flush, flush, flush. Those ones kind of went along the same bend. I got the last few are unrelated poems. Each one has a kind of its own little theme. The first one is a love poem. It's hard to find one of those in this mix, but this is a love poem. 8 stories up. The window is 8 stories up, and it looks like a fine flight down. Reckless flights of fancy. It's not so easy to do. 1 foot out, 1 foot in. Make your choice. Can't have it both ways. Leaps of faith and cracked windshields and spider webs wound too tight with shooting stars ablaze. How could she be so mean to me? The window is 8 stories up, and it does look like a fine flight down. Waiting, wanting, yearning, longing, needing, pining, fingers gripped to window moldings, too sentimental for my own good. I cling and climb and grope in those dark, dank places of dwelling and dealing. The window is 8 stories up. And it looks like she's arrived after all. And it looks like the flight has been canceled. And here's a philosophical little poem called Adjusting Creatures, What We Are. I have no idea about reverberating notes of a harpsichord, but I do know there is a way of loving smog. Just take a long breath and become part of it. We are all just creatures adjusting to conditions. Like the men with perfectly coiffed mustaches, sitting around drinking wine and talking about themselves. Listening to that is when my nerves finally reach the throat. My hands stuffed into empty pockets as all the rivers run dry. Just remember, starving doesn't create art. It creates hunger pangs. Now chew on that. The next one is a playful exercise in whimsy called Nothing. When you are something, something will always be expected from you. When you are nothing, nothing is ever expected from you. The older I get, the more I strive for nothing, an ever more splendid nothing than can seem obtuse. But still, it's my lighthouse. Nothing can be so beautiful, nothing can be so perfect, spinning on its crooked axis, but it's also freeing, like cracked mirror reflections, or screaming as you drown. People never want reasonable answers to reasonable questions. So I move away with my sundry bits somewhere between the art and the fire, and accept that only rarely will the Tupperware lids match their bottoms. King of the Slackers. This is a happy poem. Nice little happy poem. Sitting here on a serene Saturday, sipping on the sanity sauce, not pressing the thing, just passing time in the leisurely ways. The kids are running around playing. The grill is warming up. Life makes sense in this moment, so I'm breathing with a bit more awareness than usual today. I want to notice it. I want to notice it all. I know it won't last, can't last. I wouldn't really want it to. I can only stomach so many happy time poems. But this is one, and it's not even hastily written. But writing with haste is usually the point for me. Living with haste is usually the point. But not today. Today the machine is in low gear. Notebook in hand, pen in hand, and a slow fire burning between the ears. Now, these next two are the last two, and I've saved them for last because they're very different, but I find them truly interesting. The first one is Heading to Work poem, Heading to Work. And it's called No Legs. It's 7:13 on a Tuesday morning, and I'm sitting at a red light. That seems to shine brighter than red lights usually do. I look to the right. On a sidewalk is a legless man with a motorized wheelchair. He pulls up and stops at the same bright-ass light. He's got style. I can tell. He's decorated his wheelchair with anti-establishment stickers, a flag, and what looks like side saddlebags. He's ready for the fight. He motions for me to roll my window down. I oblige. "Want to race, jackass?" he snarls. Tell him I do. I roll up the window and stare back at the light, then back at the man with no legs, then the light. It turns green. I punch it. I'm out of the gate quick. He can't match what's under my hood. I quickly see him fading in the distance of my rear view mirror with a big smile and his middle finger flying as high as his "Don't Tread on Me" flag that's blowing in the wind. I drive on to work knowing full well this is the only race I'm winning today. And the last one. That was Going to Work poem. This is Staying Home from Work poem called Watching the Lemmings. To the darling billions of you who choose to get out of bed this morning. Oh yes, my friend, it is most certainly a choice. I salute you. Day after day, year after year, we crawl out of our protective caves at a snail's pace in a rat race, heading bravely into the fire. Fascinating in our commitment to carry on the charade. Alarm clock, bathroom, shower, coffee maker, food shoveled down, start car, drive. It's with a profound sense of pleasure that I am choosing to stay in bed on this crisp winter morning, proudly deferring to my inner sloth. I wish I could tell you of a guilt-ridden moment as I call the big boss and explain he will not have the pleasure of my company on this fine day. But that would be a lie. I am officially 24 hours free of the machine. I plan to eat eggs smothered in cheese and hot sauce while standing at the window watching the lemmings drive off with their employment cliffs and retirement ledges. And tomorrow I will have to rejoin the herd, rest assured. But today I feel damn good. It's with my bathrobe wide open and bare ass that I salute you all once again and truly hope you enjoy your ride in. That's all, folks. So that's my favorite poet, Matthew Jose.
What's his name again? What's his name again?
Matthew Jose, Jose. I'm going to just
Matthew
show
Jones.
you his picture. There he
We
is.
have 10 minutes for people to ask questions if you have any questions. Oh, there's a picture of him.
Yeah, here's a picture of
Yeah.
Matt. Yeah,
I enjoyed those. Those were quite unusual poems, really entertaining.
yeah, he's an amazing guy. He's just very amazing. He
So
lives down in Connecticut, and yeah, I wished he lived up here and he could
Does
go around the circuit.
does anybody have anything you would like to say or ask Candice about her reading? No? Yes, Bill?
Candice, how did you come across Matthew? What's the
He
connection
came
there?
across me. He emailed me and asked if he could send me a manuscript. And that was a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. And all through the time he was asking me if we could collaborate. So we decided last year to collaborate, and we're working under the name of Double Trouble. And our first book is Poems from the Edge. Double Trouble, Poems from the Edge.
Okay. And you've published one of his solo
Yeah,
compilations. That's
yeah,
the one I had a
Chronic-
chance to read. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
it's
Chronicles.
brilliant.
Isn't it? Yeah, he's an amazing guy. Yeah, a young guy, so he's got a long way to go.
Great reading. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.